Hi, this is Bradley Barth from SC Media, reporting from the Identiverse Conference in Las Vegas. My guest today is Karthik Kotha. He is Senior Software Engineering Manager at the supermarket retailer Kroger. Karthik presented an interesting case study at Identiverse explaining how Kroger found itself doing a lot more e-commerce business at the start of the pandemic. And this influx of new customers necessitated a new approach toward managing identity risks and account fraud. So, Karthik, just how big of an influx are we talking about?
Yeah, thank you for having me. We had in the pandemic, grocery stores, first of all, were an essential business. So our stores were open, and it was a multiple of our 2019 traffic. A lot of customers didn't want to go to the stores, so they would place orders online mainly for pickup and then later on for delivery. So yeah, it was just a massive influx to our infrastructure, as well as new folks signing up for accounts. So we saw a big influx of new account signups as well.
A centerpiece of your strategy was migration to Microsoft Azure Active Directory B2C. Why take the SaaS product approach? What factored into that decision? Explain a little bit of the thought behind that.
Yeah, so we actually had an internal project where we were building out our own identity provider. And we just realized that, one, it was not an easy thing to do. It requires a lot of identity talent and expertise, which we could invest in that area or we could invest in something else. It was just a value call at the end of the day. Now, an analogy I like to use is like our Kroger stores, we don't build our own security system for our Kroger stores or the door locks. We use a vendor. And similarly for our e-commerce, we'd rather let the experts do that. And Microsoft does a great job of providing client libraries that makes it approachable to developers, and they also will be much quicker to fix security patches than we would be able to on our own custom-built services.
You want to let the developers, be developers and concentrate on the features and the innovations that are going to drive revenue, and let them work in their wheelhouse. And you can leave the security to a SaaS product, and that is one less thing that they have to be dealing with. What types of fraud is Kroger most concerned about, and how did you approach those various risks through the stage-by-stage implementation of your new identity architecture? Explain in your answer to me what some of the key features and attributes you were looking for out of the system.
Sure. So some of the biggest threats we've experienced are credential stuffing attacks. We've seen chargebacks, account takeovers, and multi-accounting, although that last one is more abuse. So what we've done is, one, we have a WAF protection layer that helps with the credential stuffing. And then we're using a fraud vendor that will give a risk score at sign in and sign up. That's based on device fingerprinting, email scoring, and other variables. The other important feature is the MFA capability that B2C provides out of the box. So rather than us custom building that, it's just a URL that we give to our developers. Anytime you want the user to go through a step-up authentication flow, they just have to direct the user to a URL we provide, and then B2C will handle that for them. And like you said, it makes it easy for developers to do security so that they can focus on building features.
Karthik, one of the elements you described in your overall identity strategy, which stuck out in my mind during your presentation, was this notion of targeted friction and conditional access. That's always a difficult calculation, figuring out what's an acceptable amount of hoops that you can ask any particular user to jump through to verify that they are who they say they are. How do you perform that calculus? What factors go into it?
Yeah, so one thing about groceries, right? We have a wide user base. Like we need, it's not just tech-savvy users. So we want to make sure that it's seamless enough for all of our users. And as far as adding targeted friction, that takes a lot of trial and error, and it's a balancing act that you have to constantly stay on top of. So one example is we implemented at sign-in a a WAF protection layer, like I mentioned earlier, and that gives a cryptic error message when it blocks you because of, let's say, email enumeration. And one of the things we found out is when there was a false positive there, and they're legitimate users, unfortunately, using email enumeration to create accounts. It's usually like maybe companies are creating multiple accounts for their departments, or state agencies are creating accounts for like homeless shelters and food pantries. So what happens is there was no easy way for our customer service folks or other people to know that an account was blocked because of email enumeration or fraud. So we've since revised the policies and trained our frontline support staff to understand that, hey, when a customer complains about this error message, check these XYZ fields to see if they were blocked due to fraud. So that was one learning experience. The other thing is MFA, right? So the good thing is users are used to MFA. Like almost every company now has it. Same with email verification. We actually were a little bit skeptical. We thought that if we forced email verification, users would get confused and it would hit revenue. But actually, users, again, they were trained to do email verification. So as soon as we turned that on, yes, we did have some users who were confused and maybe they didn't get the code in time or some other factors that prevented them from entering the code in time. But it turned out they were, a vast majority of our users were able to do email verification. There were no issues when we turned that on and essentially made it required.
And speaking of less than ideal customer experiences where the user encounters some form of friction getting from point A to point B, I understand you had a bit of a misadventure in your hotel elevator. About that?
Yeah, it was actually at the Park MGM, but it was yesterday morning at like 5:45 a.m. I was going down to the gym, and then I hit the lobby button, and I was going down the elevator, and there was one other person in the elevator. The display just goes blank, and then it comes back on, and there's like 2 horizontal dashes, and the elevator just stopped. So that was definitely a bit scary. Again, there was no cell signal, and this is when like you just hope that call button actually works. And it did, luckily, and the staff was there in a matter of minutes. They moved the elevator to the right floor. But I think it's a good learning experience that you want to have a way for users to recover make sure, like if they go to forgot password or if they lose their device, how do they register a new device? You just think through all of those error scenarios because your users will be frustrated, just as I was yesterday morning.
All right. Well, I'm glad it was only just a couple of minutes, so you didn't have to start thinking about elaborate escape plans or anything like that. So thanks for joining me today, Karthik. Really appreciate it. That's Karthik Kotha from Kroger. I'm Bradley Barth with SE Media, reporting from Las Vegas at the Identiverse Conference.